let's turn the tables a little bit. You talked about the fundraising, and which was new to you, but it's kind of ironic that a shark on Shark Tank. I mean, if I can say it, I remember you called me and you're like, "Hey, Brian, can you help me with this fundraising thing?" I'm like, "Wait a minute, you're the shark on Shark Tank." Just teasing you a little bit, not making myself sound too special here, but I did have more experience raising capital because I didn't have the luxury of like a super cash flow business like you did, multiple businesses. So, you didn't need the money. It's funny when you look at this. I think at one point you were like, "Oh, I really like the idea that Brian was able to scale his business and, raise a bunch of capital." And on the other side, I was like, "I love how Alex is building these profitable businesses where he doesn't have to depend on investors." So it's kind of ironic because now I'm building Latitude and I'm not raising any money. So I think that we're like changing places here. But talk about those, that experience. You have been an investor, and so what did you learn about investing when you went fundraising, and what did you learn about fundraising as an investor?
I think I didn't learn enough. I didn't reflect enough on as an investor that I ended up applying in when fundraising, and I should have. And I think the reason I didn't learn a lot is because angel investment, which is what I did, which is very different from venture capital investment, where you are handling other people's money. It's very emotional. It's very, very emotional, and being that emotional, it's not like you end up building a checklist of things that you have to check upon. It becomes very instinctive and intuitive to invest. So when it came the moment to fundraise, it wasn't easy for me at all because my empathy levels are low to do something that it was going to obviously wake up emotions on investors. So, and also because you end up having to deal with a lot of rejection. It's very interesting, but like building bootstrap companies, like I didn't have to deal with a lot of rejection. Like, yeah, I know that 20% of the people that sign up are going to pay, or 10% or whatever it is, which means that implicitly, like 80% of people are rejecting you, right? But you don't get to learn about them. You only get to see like the money coming into the bank from the people that actually paid you. When you raise capital, you have to deal with the no's. Right? Like people tell you, "No, I'm not interested," or "No, thank you," or "You are too early," or whatever, right? Handling that rejection is something that I think I should have learned better when I was deploying capital as an investor that I didn't. One thing that I did learn is that there are many types of investors, and I think I learned this primarily through Shark Tank, because here living in Silicon Valley, like angel investors, they tend to behave relatively the same, and that is, "Hey, here you have a check, and here's my email address. If you need me, let me know. I'll help you. But otherwise, like just tell me when you IPO or when you exit, and that's it, right?" Very hands-off investment. Shark Tank, I ended up being exposed to many other investors that had very different interests. So that was a very important lesson that I took into account when raising capital for Torre, because I was raising capital not only in Silicon Valley and New York City and Boston, but I was raising capital everywhere. So it was very easy to come across, let's say, family offices or local angel investors in some markets that wanted to execute, that they wanted a large portion of the company because they wanted to be hands-off in there. And either, so I set up filters very quickly to either realize, okay, this is not a good fit, or make sure that they had clear expectations from the get-go, like, "Hey, listen, it's not like you're going to manage the business just because you're putting 50K into this company." So that was important. And the other thing that I realized is that...
Let me just frame that real quick. Let me frame it real quick. So matching expectations was a big thing you did, like making sure that what you were looking for and what the person was looking for met in the middle.
Yeah, especially when you're looking for more than just money, right? Like,
Yep.
because in Torre, you're committing to opening doors for Torre in addition to just giving capital. And that commitment needs to be clear, because usually it's never going to be written, right? It's something that you say, but you don't necessarily write.
I like it. Yeah, it's good. It's good to get that commitment. I mean, ideally, you have an investor that, it does more than money. As we said
Yeah.
before, it doesn't always happen. But if you construct your fundraising around like, hey, how can this person help me beyond the money? Then you're getting more value for the money, even.
Correct. And another thing, it's there are some, but I learned this already on the fundraising process and not so much before. There are some investors that are heavily focused on the why. There are some others that are more focused on the who. There are others that are focused on the how, and others that are focused on the what. And for me, the investors that I enjoy the most are the ones that have a lot of experience with the what and the how, but are primarily focused on identifying the who and the why. If you are getting an investor in early stages that is investing in you just because your numbers are going up, I don't think that's the best investor, because that investor is going to be happy only for as long as your numbers are going up. You need early investors that are going to support you as a human being and are going to support your cause, even if the numbers are not where you want them to be all the time.
I really, really like that explanation. It's the first time I've ever heard someone frame the who, what, how, and why of like, it makes so much sense to me when you say it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what you described, just repeating, the people you like to work with are the people that understand the how and the what, which is great. It's like, very, very, maybe if, ideally they've built something before, or
Mhm.
they've scaled something. So like they get that kind of tactical piece and how to execute, but they're really focused on the why. And what's the last one?
The who.
The who. Yeah, got it. And
Yeah.
with the who, is that the team or the market?
The team, like
Yeah,
who are they investing
got it.
on? Like they want to know about me as a person.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
are my strengths, my weaknesses, and where is that I have potential?
Love it. I love that. I think that's a really, I really like that. I'm going to be thinking more about the lens of when people are evaluating things, like how are they looking at it, from what perspective? And actually, I really geek out on the psychology of this stuff. And I think that's like such an important element of fundraising, is just the psychology, what motivates people, why do they do things? Because those are all things that if you can really understand that, you can just position yourself for success. And the frustration is going to happen no matter what, because not every, like you said, 80 people are going to say no, or 80% of the opportunities. So how did you end up dealing with that frustration of people saying no? And like, how do you not take it personally?
I talked to a friend called Brian Reckworth, and and he told me, and I remember this. We were at your home, sitting beside your pool, and I think you told me I had to talk to 38 investors
Yeah.
before I got the first yes.
Yeah.
And I figure, okay, if Brian, that is a great speaker, it's a very likable person, had to do that, I should expect my ratio to be significantly lower than that. So I have to get ready for a lot of no's. So it was that, and that allowed me not to take it personal. Of course, it's difficult, right? Because getting no and no and no, it's not personal. It's like you hitting a wall and the wall not giving up. But when you get that first yes, oh man, it feels so good. And then after that, it really becomes a numbers game.
Yeah. Well, one advantage you have also is that, like, you also did finance a lot of what you're doing. And I think that, like, when I look at and talk to an entrepreneur and they're like, I'm all in on this and like I'm putting my own money behind it, that was one thing. I was talking to a founder this morning who's fundraising. I can't say the name of the company, but it's a very, very hot. I'll tell you afterwards and let you know. But this deal is very exciting, and he's talking to all the investors. They're all excited about it, and it's going to be probably a very, very nice looking round coming together. And he's like, "Do you have any advice?" I'm talking to these names here, some big names, and one of the things that I responded with is, the when I think about when I was fundraising, I had sold my apartment and put all the money into the business. And there was just like a, that story along with like, it sends a message, right? It's like, I'm so deeply committed to this, and you have to give people a reason to believe, right? And so if you can, share those things that like really illustrate your deep conviction and your kind of, that was something that I would, unabashedly tell everyone, that because it was true. And it was a way of me saying like, I'm just not going to give up till this thing works. And the psychological understanding of like, when an investor hears that, in their mind, they're looking for ways to, to believe in you. And that gives them more fuel for the fire. And so I think that,
Yep.
and you putting money into your own business and, being, all in on this and saying, look, this is going to be my last act, kind of like, that's a big deal, because you've already been super successful. And when you say that, like, people take that seriously.
Yes, it helps a lot. I think it's much easier when you are inviting people to be your co-investors rather than your investors, right? I want you to co-invest with me in this dream in here.